Think you could outsmart some of the most iconic horror movie slashers? Think again. These aren't just killers. They're nightmares that come to life. Unstoppable forces of terror that will find you, outlast you, and destroy you. Stick around, because we're about to dive into some of the most impossible horror movie icons that you would 100% not be able to survive. And trust me, running isn't an option. The Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. The movie premises around a demonic creature that awakes every 23rd spring, but not just to feed on human body parts, which it uses to regenerate itself. Now, the regeneration is something we have to talk about, because it's not just regenerating legs or arms. We have witnessed the Creeper regenerate his own head. He decapitates someone, decapitates himself, and then puts their head on as his own. But he was more or less like a Lego character. Now, the Creeper doesn't only have regeneration, he's also nearly indestructible. He can also fly and uses weapons made out of human bones. And he picks you based off of fear. Now, it's not only fear though, it's the smell of fear. If he somehow gets your scent, he's now locked onto you, meaning there is no escape. Now, I know a lot of you are gonna say, Chris, I just won't be scared. He can smell me and I won't be terrified. Look here, Timmy. When this creature comes up to you and you're looking it dead in its face, I guarantee you're gonna end up peeing your pants. It's not a question of will you survive, it's how long you will survive once he's latched onto your scent. We've seen characters in not only the first one, but the second one. I don't count any of the other ones because they're terrible, but we have seen no one who the Creeper was genuinely locked onto their scent actually survive. Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. The movie premises around a young boy who drowned at Camp Crystal Lake, due to, of course, neglect. Jason's vengeful spirit then manifests itself, turning him into an undead killing machine. Now, Jason Voorhees is one of those horror movie characters who has multiple versions. We're going to be focusing mainly on actual Jason Voorhees and remake Jason Voorhees. We're not going to be talking about Jason X. We don't have to worry about him going to space, because we're not going to space. Jason is not only virtually immortal, whether it's human or undead version, he's completely unstoppable, wielding, of course, his trusty machete and crushing skulls with ease. He, of course, thrives in his element, the woods, aka Camp Crystal Lake. And no matter how far you run, he's always one step ahead of you. Now, I want to talk about the 2009 version of Jason Voorhees, because I feel like it doesn't get enough credit. Now, in the 2009 remake, Buddy can run. He's also a master hunter. We literally saw him bow and arrow somebody 100 feet from the shore on a boat. And in my opinion, this version of Jason Voorhees is 10 times scarier than any other version, because he's a master tracker. And it almost seems like in the 2009 remake, he ends up getting hooked on someone, putting them in some underground trap area, almost making it look like the basement from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Moral of the story is, any version of Jason Voorhees that's coming after you, you're absolutely cooked. And for everybody who's going to go in the comment section and say, well, I just won't go to Camp Crystal Lake. Have you seen Freddy vs. Jason? Buddy is running rampant everywhere. It does not matter. Any way you slice it, once Jason sees you, it's over for you. Michael Myers from Halloween. The movie premises, of course, on young Michael Myers, who starts his reign of terror at 6 years old when he murdered his sister on Halloween night. And after years of silence in a psychiatric facility, he, of course, escapes in horror movie fashion, and now is returned to Haddonfield to kill again. Now, Michael Myers is the embodiment of pure evil. He has superhuman durability, strength that completely defies logic, and unrelenting determination. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, Chris, well, I would just run away. Michael Myers is the slowest horror movie character. He literally just walks, but he always catches you. No matter if you get in your car, you run away, it doesn't matter. It almost seems like Michael Myers is always one step ahead of you, even though he's so slow. On top of the fact that bullets, fire, or anything like that does not slow him down or deter him from his actual victim. Now, in my opinion, the only logical way of surviving Michael Myers would just to not be in Haddonfield. But of course, if you're dropped inside of a horror movie setting, there isn't really much you could do. Pinhead from Hellraiser. The movie premises around a sadistic leader of the Cenobites, and Pinhead offers them ultimate pleasure and pain through, of course, that laminate Rubik's Cube. Now, yes, technically you have to actually solve the Rubik's Cube, or at least a piece of the Rubik's Cube, to unlock the Cenobites and Pinhead to come out of nowhere. But it seems like in every adaptation, we see people either A, not knowing that once they solve that Rubik's Cube, something terrible is going to happen, or they're coerced into doing it, like we saw in the newest version of Hellraiser, because you're promised so many things once it's solved. Once that cube tastes your blood, you're locked in, because once the Xenobites arrive, they drag you into their dimension, where it is nothing but pain and suffering for all of eternity. As I've said multiple times, I know a lot of you are going to say, Chris, I'm just not going to solve the cube. Listen, that's something that I would say. But when somebody is promising you something and you don't know what can actually happen from it, what would you do? Hey, we're going to give you $100 million if you could solve this cube. You're going to try to solve it, because you have no idea in your mind that there are demons from another dimension that are going to come through this cube and torture you for all of eternity. Freddy Kruger from A Nightmare on Elm Street. The movie premises on a former child murderer burned alive by vengeful parents, and Freddy now haunts your dreams, turning nightmares into his personal hunting ground. The biggest problem with Freddy Krueger is the fact that you cannot sleep. He attacks you in your dreams when you're at your most vulnerable state, and once you fall into his world, he controls absolutely everything. I would describe Freddy Krueger as a sadistic, supernatural dream demon, and all I can say to you is good luck. And a lot of you guys are gonna go in the comment section below and say, look, Chris, we know we can bring him into the real world. We understand that part. How are you gonna do it? You not only have to master lucid dreaming, but you have to realize that you're in that dream when you're in his dream world. It took characters a very long time to figure out, okay, we can actually drag Freddy into the real world where he's not not as powerful. He's just a normal guy with butter knives on his fingers. But it's not possible, because when you're inside of the actual movie, when you're inside of A Nightmare on Elm Street, you don't know these things. Now, if this were to happen in the real world, I think it's possible we might be able to figure out, okay, Freddy's the dream demon, we're in a dream. Most of the time, do you think when you're dreaming that you're in an actual dream? Or do you wake up and go, did that actually happen? That's what I'm saying. Good luck. Ghostface from Scream. Unlike other killers on this list, Ghostface is a human, but always seems to be a new person, taking their own spin on being this deadly killer. These killers vary on skill and intelligence, but there's one thing I can guarantee you. There's always more than one Ghostface. In every adaptation of the Scream franchise we've seen, there's always at least 2 killers. In the newest one, there are 3. Every single killer inside of every single Scream movie seems to blend inside of a social friend group that exploits their personal weaknesses. They're not only just killers. Most of the time, they're your friends. People you trust with your deepest and darkest secrets. People who you're alone with, who end up taking that dark turn into insanity and try and kill you. Now, I know we all have that one friend that you wouldn't be too surprised if they were Ghostface inside of a horror movie. So having a friend group and having someone recently come in or coming in a month late or something like that, and there's just something a little bit off, they want to know too much information. Of course, we're premising on the fact that we're inside of a Scream movie. I wouldn't trust him at all, because we've seen too many legacy characters get killed for trusting someone. John Kramer from the Saw series. John Kramer goes by many names. Most of you may know him by Jigsaw, who is a terminally ill engineer who creates deathly traps to test his victims' will to live, forcing them to make impossible choices. Now, escaping one of Jigsaw's traps requires immense physical pain, which is nearly impossible to endure, on top of all of the pressure, because you're not only doing this to yourself, but it's also timed. I probably can't show you the clip, but there's a clip in Saw X where the girl is sawing off her leg to suck up bone marrow, have it fill inside of a machine. Now look, the pain itself is absolutely insane, but the fact that she was so close but did not have enough time was the problem. So let's say you're inside of a saw trap. You have 5 minutes to finish this trap. You not only go through all of that pain, but you get so close to thinking you're gonna live, but you still end up dying. Now, I know a lot of you are gonna say, Chris, look, I'm just not gonna play the tape, because that's exactly what I would say. Unfortunately, you have to play the tape in order to play the game. Now, I know you don't want to play the game, but it's almost a hidden rule that you have to play the tape before you play the game. Now, for me personally, I would rather just starve than play the game and just sit down there in the trap, but I bet you he would end up starting it. I know someone's gonna go in the comment section and say, look, Chris, technically you can survive a saw trap, and that is 100% true. But how much of you actually survives that saw trap? After doing something so terrible to yourself to pretty much appease him, how much more of a person are you actually? That's the question. The Xenomorph from Alien. The Xenomorph is a biochemical killing machine, engineered by nature to be the perfect predator. The Xenomorph hurts without mercy. The Xenomorph not only has acid blood, but a razor-sharp tail, and is also a relentless hunter. Of course, the Xenomorph thrives in tight enclosed spaces like a spaceship, and fighting it is nearly impossible, due to the fact that if you cut it, the acid gets on you, it's going to melt your skin. If you blow it up, it's also going to melt your skin. We also have to think about the fact that these movies are premised and based on a spaceship. If you blow up a Xenomorph on the spaceship, it's going to make a massive hole in the spaceship, meaning that everything and everyone is now going to get sucked into outer space, meaning you're going to die no matter what. So forget fighting, forget running. Its speed and intelligence ensure you to fail. Now, your only saving grace would be having a predator on your side, because we've seen Alien versus Predator, where they do go at it. The only problem is that 9 times out of 10, there are at least 15 Xenomorphs and 1 or 2 predators. And we've seen them clash and go both ways with who wins and who doesn't. 9 times out of 10, the one with numbers is going to win, meaning your survival is 0. Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Leatherface is a mentally impaired cannibal who is manipulated by his grotesque family. Leatherface uses his infamous chainsaw to dispatch intruders. But yes, the movie is based in Texas, and it also has to do with a group of friends picking up a hitchhiker on a road trip, who end up dropping him off, going inside, and of course running into Leatherface. Now see, I know a lot of you are going to say, Chris, well, I'm just not going to do that, and that's exactly the logical way that I would survive, because there's no way I'm doing that. As I said before, we're premising ourselves inside of the movie that we're talking about. We're not talking about real world. We're talking about inside of the actual film. So you have no choice. Friends picked up a hitchhiker. Now you're inside of Leatherface's house. He's not only extremely fast, has insane amounts of strength, but is unwaveringly loyal to his twisted family, which makes him absolutely terrifying. You also have to remember that you are in an immense rural area. There is no one around. No one is coming to save you. Every adaptation of Leatherface we've seen has gotten scarier and scarier and scarier, in my opinion. Still, the best movie that holds up in my opinion is the 1974 version, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think he was 10 times scarier then than any of the new adaptations, especially the newest one. But he is just as terrifying in every movie. And even if you were to escape his house, all roads lead back to him. He's not just gonna let you go. But I think you're also forgetting about the cannibalistic family. His actual family has attributes that help him, and who will also make sure that you end up in that that basement. Because once you're in that basement, there's practically nothing you can do. You can try to escape, you could try to lockpick, you could try to do this, but once they hear that sound, bells go off in their head, making it nearly impossible to not only run through the house or escape the actual tunnels, but to even survive for 10 minutes. And finally, you have Chucky from Child's Play. Chucky is based on a serial killer who inhabits themselves inside of a child's doll. And in, of course, horror movie fashion, he's inside of a good guy doll, turning Chucky into a super small but deadly predator. Now look, I know a lot of you are going to say, Chris, look, I'm not getting packed up by a doll, and I completely agree. But we're inside of the movie. You're not going to think that a doll sitting on the floor can actually kill you. Because 9 times out of 10, Chucky ends up getting the jump on someone. They have no idea what's going on. Now granted, Chucky is not the strongest. It is a doll with the actual strength of a grown man. 9 times out of 10, most of us can probably withstand that. It's his small stature, but his massive creativity to take household objects, turning them into weapons. In some of the most unexpected ways possible. We've seen him push people out of windows because they got so scared. We've actually also seen him burn alive, but Buddy doesn't die. He can of course then transfer his soul into another doll, or just make himself better altogether. Chucky is one of those characters that in my personal opinion, I would just punt across the room and run, but 9 times out of 10, Chucky will kill you before you even notice it's an actual haunted doll. Now, as I said before, this video is based on you being inside of the actual movie. And obviously, if we were in the real world and we're talking about these characters actually being brought into the real world, Michael Myers would be very easy to survive, because you can not only get in your car and drive out of Haddonfield, but you don't have to live there at all. So there you have it. In my opinion, there is a list of horror movie slashers that you have zero chance of surviving. From serial killer dolls to nightmare demons, there is no humanly possible way you were surviving these movies while being inside of them. I don't want to see any comments about how you're built different or how you would survive this movie, because we're talking about actually being inside of them. I'm talking about these things happening in the real world. Chucky was in the real world, I would punt him across the room and run out of my house. Michael Myers, you could just leave Haddonfield and call it a day. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. Because what makes it so impossible, the fact that you're actually inside of these movies. You know nothing. Hereditary. The movie premises around the Graham family, who begins to unravel the disturbing history of their ancestors. The family is haunted by the spirit of their grandmother, who was part of a satanic cult that worshipped the ancient demon, Payman. Grandma's got a lot of explaining to do. Imagine that. You're doing some history on your ancestors and you find out that your grandmother was some satanic cult leader? Payman is described as one of the 8 kings of hell. He also seeks to possess a male host, and his presence is very manipulative. He then uses the family's grief and dysfunction as a tool to facilitate his ritualistic control. It seems like once you're caught in this massive spider web of doom, there's nothing you can do. I mean, take a look at the actual family from the movie. His hold on them was way too powerful. I'm giving your survival chances a big fat 0. Poltergeist. The movie follows the Freeling family, whose suburb house is haunted by malevolent spirits, as their daughter Carol communicates with them through the television. The spirits are led by an evil entity, known as the Beast, who lures Carol into the spirit world. No way I'm going into a TV, especially with a malevolent spirit known as the Beast. The Beast is an evil entity from another world that has trapped souls in the house, feeding on, of course, fear. It's not just your typical ghost apparition. The Beast is a powerful force, capable of manipulating objects and even time itself. So you're not only dealing with a spirit who controls the TV, you're dealing with a thing that can literally change time. I don't want to hear nobody in the comments saying, look, I would survive this. It ain't gonna work. It is not going to work like that. Because if you found yourself in the house, it's more or less a death trap. Because the Beast is controlling all forces of nature, and the Freeling family is now forced to enter the spirit world to try and rescue Carol. But the Beast makes it nearly impossible to survive unscathed. Like I said before, somebody goes inside of the TV, I am changing the channel. That's just how it works. I am not going inside of the TV to the spirit world to save absolutely anyone. But of course, if you're trapped inside of the house, what else are you gonna do? The Ring. The movie premises around a journalist named Rachel, who investigates the death of her niece, who died after watching a cursed videotape. And anyone who watches the tape will die within 7 days. Curse originates from a vengeful spirit named Samara, a girl with the ability to manipulate the physical world. Now I know what you all are gonna type in the comment section, Chris, I'm just not watching the tape. That's my answer as well if we were talking about actually being in our world and dealing with something like this. But everyone knows that there's a slim few of you who would have to watch the tape just to see what happens. Now I damn well know you guys are gonna pass it on too, so that you can survive. Because realistically, the only way to survive the ring by passing on the tape to someone else, freeing yourself for someone else's life. Now Samara is a tortured spirit. After being thrown in a well by her adopted mother, her spirit became restless. Samara's powers not only transfer to the physical world, but she can manipulate technology, especially videos, to spread her curse. Now look, this movie all depends on how you are as a person. Are you going to transfer the tape to save your own life, or are you just going to die with it? Comment that down below right now, because I want to know what kind of people are watching my videos. I want to see what kind of compass, what kind of moral compass you guys have. Now me personally, I'm not going to answer that question, because either way you do it, you're cooked. Are you A, going to die with it, or are you B, going to pass it on to someone and live with that for your whole life? That's the question. The Grudge. The movie follows a young woman named Karen, who is tasked with taking care of an elderly woman who lives in a house cursed by a vengeful spirit. The house was the site of a brutal murder, and the curse is passed on to anyone who enters the house, slowly driving them insane. You walk into somebody's house and you're trying to do your job, and all of a sudden you now have a vengeful spirit on you that is going to make you die. The only way to get it off of you is by inviting someone else in the house. This is kind of like the same premise of The Ring. Are you going to pass it on to someone knowing that you're going to kill them? Or are you just going to die with it? Now, the Grudge is described as a malevolent spirit who haunts whoever it comes into contact with. The vengeful spirit was actually born out of rage and cannot be stopped, leading to inescapable death of all of its victims. Once you've been marked by the Grudge, there's no running. There's no hiding. There's no nothing. Death itself is the only thing that's inevitable. Conjuring. The movie's based on the real-life investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren. The film follows the couple as they investigate a haunting of the Perron family in Rhode Island, because the house that they just moved into is being terrorized by an ancient spirit named Bathsheba, who was a witch, accused of sacrificing her children to Satan. Now look, you gotta have pretty bad luck if you move into a brand new house with your whole entire family and you end up in a haunted house, haunted by a dark entity that killed her children on the land, that not only curses your house, but the land surrounding it. Now, Bathsheba is a very vengeful spirit who not only cursed the house, but also the land, using her powers to control and torment anyone who dares to stay on the land or in the house. And over time, it seems like her power is getting stronger, as she particularly targets children and pregnant women. Now, as we know in The Conjuring, there is a family of like 12 people who just moved into the house, meaning there are plenty of children to try and control with more or less ease. So I would say your survival chances are practically zero. Bathsheba is a force of pure evil, manipulating her victims and possessing their bodies and mind, because even the Warrens, skilled in the paranormal, nearly failed to save the parents. Now, we all know the mom got possessed. When she's crawling underneath the house trying to kill one of her kids, bro, she looks absolutely insane. You also can't forget about the part where Ed and Lorraine Warren are actually talking to Bathsheba through the mother, when she's in the chair and starts spinning and going against the walls and everything like that. So anybody who's about to type in the comment section and say, dude, that would be so easy, I just won't get possessed. Unfortunately, it seems to not work like that. Insidious. The movie follows the Lambert family, who moves into a brand new house. Are you catching the trend yet? All of these paranormal movies have to do with people moving into new houses, man. Do your research. Before I move into a brand new house, just know I'm checking absolutely everything having to do that has ever happened on the land or inside of the house. Because with my luck, I'd move into a house like this, only to find that their son Dalton has mysteriously fell into a coma. As strange occurrences start to escalate, they discover Dalton's soul has ventured into the Further, a dimension inhabited by malice spirits. Now look, we gotta talk about Redface. We gotta talk about the Redface demon, who's still the face of Insidious to this day. This movie came out in 2010, and bro is still rocking it. Now, the Redface demon is an honored creature who lives in the Further. Its primary goal? To, of course, possess Dalton's body, taking over his life while his soul is trapped in the spirit world. The demon then creates a terrifying atmosphere that makes escaping nearly impossible. Now, it seems like once you're trapped inside of the Further, there is no way of getting out. Yes, technically he did. Technically, Dalton's been out of the Further 4 or 5 times. After the second Insidious, it seems like they just remade the movie over and over and over again, just with them growing up more and more. For reference, Insidious: The Red Door. It is the same exact movie as the original Insidious, except the fact that Dalton is in college. That is the only difference. But I'm sorry to tell you, if you found yourself in the Further, your survival chances are slim to none. The Further is an extremely hostile environment, and while family seeks help from paranormal experts, the demon's power and persistence only grows stronger, making your survival nearly impossible. If I know you and for some reason you were in the Further, I'm not coming to save you, and if I was in the Further, I wouldn't expect you to come and save me. How do you even get there? How do you even get there? You ain't surviving. The Babadook. The movie follows our main character Amelia and her son Samuel, who are being haunted by an appearance of a mysterious dark figure from a children's book called Mr. Babadook. The figure slowly begins to invade their lives, manipulating their perception of reality. Now, the Babadook feeds on grief and fear, kind of like all of these other characters on this list. But after just recently being widowed, Amelia's grief and trauma is so much that the Babadook latches onto her. And with the Babadook feeding on fear, it's virtually unstoppable once it enters someone's mind. Now, some of you may say, Chris, I don't have any grief, I don't have any trauma. You're telling me if you're laying down in your bed, you're sleeping, right? You're sleeping. You see a mysterious figure at the end of your bed, you're not going to be scared. That is a bold-faced lie. I know for a fact you're going to be scared, which means that you're going to be feeding this demon, making it stronger. So regardless of what you do, even if you don't have any of the other things that Amelia had, you are definitely going to be scared. Because I'm gonna be scared. Your chance of survival in this movie is extremely low. The entity is way more psychological than physical, but its impact is relentless. The only chance of surviving this movie is by facing your grief and trauma head on. But even then, still gonna be scared. Meaning the Babadook is going to take control of your mind, driving you insane. Movie's based on a terrifying true story of the Lutz family that moves into their new home in Long Island. That was previously the site of a brutal mass murder. As they settle in, strange and violent events begin to unfold. Now look, the only true story horror movie we've talked about on this list was The Conjuring. And I'm telling you right now, it is not as extreme as the Amityville Horror. The original story goes like this. Dad started hearing voices in the basement. He then went down into the basement and more or less lost his mind. He was able to get manipulated by whatever spirit lives inside of the house, convincing him to kill his entire family as they're sleeping. Then, of course, turn the gun on himself, which we could assume he fed the demon with that. That is the original story and what the Amityville Horror is based on. And of course, with the evil spirit in the house, and with the hectic events from the previous family, of course this was bound to happen again. Because once you're possessed by this demon, all you feel is anger. Your chance of survival, in my opinion, is extremely low. Because the house has history of driving people mentally insane, and doing things that they normally wouldn't. AKA killing your whole entire family. For everyone who's gonna go in the comment section and say, hey Chris, look, I just wouldn't go in the house, or I wouldn't let it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. You are not built different. You are not any different than anybody else. It is not going to work. If the demon wants you, it's got you. Whether you're trapped inside of a haunted house, cursed by evil demons, or haunted by the wrath of ancient entities, survival almost becomes a distant hope. I also want to say for any new viewers, we are talking about being premised inside of the movies themselves. We're not talking about this happening inside of the normal realm. We're not talking about this happening to us in our normal lives. We are talking about you or me being dropped inside of the horror movie and trying to survive with the things people know inside of the horror movie. Pretty much means you get dropped into these movies with no skill and zero knowledge. If you're dropped inside of the Amityville Horror, you cannot use that knowledge that you already know that, hey, this house is not only haunted because there was a mass murder here, but I think there's a demon in there that's gonna make me try and kill my whole family. You don't go in privy to any of the information about these movies that we already know. Dropped in blind. And you gotta try to survive. Don't forget to like the video and drop a comment down below on what else you guys want to see on the channel. With all of that being said, guys, my name is Chris, and of course, I will catch you guys on the next one.